With us on High Bank Fury, the podcast, I'm Roy J. Akers. I'm your host. I'm with Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports. Bob, most people are kind of gearing down for the off season because as soon as January 1st hits, it's kind of like, whoa, NASCAR, we're here. We're getting ready to rock. But the tire never stops spinning with you. You're at high RPMs.
Yeah, things just keep going on, and while there doesn't seem to be a lot of like driver movement here in the off season, there certainly are things to talk about.
Yeah, the silly season's been more about issues and driver and crew chief movement and that kind of thing. We're going to kind of start right off in the first of our two podcasts. The lawsuit goes to trial next week, assuming that it goes to trial. Do you think it's going to get settled or, before during the
Mhm.
trial? You think both sides are going to kind of wait for a decision? What says you?
Well, you never know. I think the trial definitely will start. I don't envision a settlement before Monday. During a trial, there are possibilities for a settlement. It kind of depends on how things go. I think more likely a settlement would come if the 2311 and front row win the trial. Then at some point during the appeal process, a settlement could come as they weigh whether NASCAR has to sell tracks or has to get rid of charters or make permanent charters or gets rid of the next gen car. All those different options that the judges can decide, they potentially could then be kind of figured out by the teams in NASCAR while under appeal.
Yeah, and it's been interesting all the things that have gotten out. Now you've kept up with the lawsuit. You kind of have a timeline that you update as news happens, and some emails got out from NASCAR brass this week. Let's go over a little of that. A lot of it's already out, and so everybody knows. Bob can be found on foxsports.com/NASCAR or by hitting the NASCAR tag. You can keep up with it yourself. But Bob, what says you on all this?
Well, it says, I mean, look, I've known Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell for probably decades, and I know that they work hard, and I know that uh, that they certainly have, they made some several key decisions, but it's pretty obvious from the text messages that they're also very sensitive, and I think it shows that they struggle in balancing the efforts that they feel they put in to benefit everybody and how they kind of view that as not necessarily being reciprocated, you know, by things that people sometimes say. And certainly in this situation, they're negotiating for TV rights, and anything that can be said can hinder those negotiations, and so that certainly was also a cause of the frustration.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the emails did get out, and frankly, I'm surprised there wasn't even more, that came out than what it is. Maybe something hasn't gotten out yet that we don't know about. But at the same token, what do you consider to be the strongest position NASCAR has? And we'll do the same thing for the 2311 team. I'm not making any judgments about either one. I'm just saying factually, what do you think both of their top arguments are from both sides?
Well, for NASCAR, their argument is going to be that they've raised the revenue of the teams by over 60% in the last few years with this new TV deal and the percentage that the teams get from it. There was a recent filing that summarized team finances that say that they're losing a couple million per car, and NASCAR will say, well, now under this new agreement that started this year, they're getting a couple $1 million more, so that they should feel like that they do have an economically viable business model. So, and NASCAR will then also say is that, 2311 and Front Row have been they've signed previous charter agreements. 2311 got in during the charter era. And, how can you come in and participate and do it and then say, well, I want, that they were doing things illegal.
Yeah. How about 2311? What do you think they're
But I mean, I think it's pretty simple on the 2311 and Front Row side that they say, look, NASCAR owns the tracks, and the tracks that they don't own, They don't allow to have any other events. They control much of your costs, because now the next gen car, which is something new, relatively new in the last few years, NASCAR controls your base costs, because you have to buy parts and pieces, most of them from specific suppliers. So they're like, and we can't use these parts and pieces for anything else except the next gen car. So I think that it's it's pretty simple. They're like, look, they control everything, and they don't give us enough to be able to do the job, to put on the product they want that gets them the TV money that they're able to get.
With those text messages, I'm not going to get into the content. You can read that on foxsports.com and then go to Bob's account. I'll let you read all that there. But do Richard Childress, Steve Phelps, and company, do they make up, or is that a little late?
Well, I think it was late before any of these text messages came up, because I think Richard Childress is upset over the decision to keep Austin Dillon out of the playoffs a couple of years ago. He was
Right.
upset at the Austin Hill penalty this year that pretty much kept him from having a chance to have a shot at the title. And so I think these text messages just added to kind of a very fractured relationship between Richard Childress and NASCAR brass.
After this brief break that we have, I got a couple more questions for Bob on the lawsuit front. And this is for all of our fans that are really interested in this. I think we're both vested, all the press is, everybody that I'm talking to, from Deb Williams, who's just made the NASCAR Hall of Fame this year in the media division, all that. And everybody just seems to have different opinions on this. We're going to get Bob's opinion, and we're going to do that in 30.
Are you ready? Let's go!
In the moments that matter most.
Oh, it's a multi-car accident. That took out about 2/3 of the field.
Charlie, hello. Display the red.
You count on reliability.
Give our safety workers plenty of room to work.
For more than 40 years, AMCUS has been a partner of NASCAR, arming first responders with an arsenal of hydraulic and battery-powered rescue tools designed to help them move faster and stay safer.
A nice assist from the AMR safety team.
Trusted by first responders nationwide when it comes to saving lives. That's why AMCUS is the trusted rescue tool of NASCAR.
He has gotten out of his race car on his own 2 feet.
Proven in the toughest moments. Tested on the biggest stages. Proudly made in the USA and powered by decades of innovation. 40 years of trust. 40 years of saving lives. Built for rescue.
AMR safety team super quick as they always are.
Built for precision.
Really good job in traffic.
Built for victory.
Absolutely dominates this race.
Let's go, fella! Awesome job!
This is Roy J. Akers for the High Bank Fury podcast. We are found multiple times weekly, where we talk to NASCAR drivers, cover stories, and those that shape the sport. This is not just another podcast. We get exclusive content, talk fantasy NASCAR racing, and spill the news before other media outlets drop their take. We are on all podcast channels, the YouTube channel, and can be found on skyviewsports.net. Check out High Bank Fury, the podcast, today. So back with us on High Bank Fury, the podcast, I have Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports. Bob has been a decades-long reporter in NASCAR. You have covered it for Daytona Beach newspapers, ESPN, Fox. I know I'm missing a couple of other employers on your resume, but you've been around a long time.
Yeah, I've been covering NASCAR a little bit part-time since 92 when I started working for the Daytona paper, and then full-time since the end of the 2003 season when I went to NASCAR Scene magazine.
And there you have it. Now, a couple more before we get off this dreaded subject and all that. If NASCAR wins a lawsuit, did Denny and Michael Jordan, do they go away, or are they going to somehow be in a different series? Does Denny retire? What do you think might happen with all this?
I think if NASCAR wins both 2311 and Front Row, they would have to try to race as open teams. Front Row is committed to racing through 2026. 2311. They've told their employees that they'll pay them through 2026. I'm not sure exactly what their obligations to their sponsors are. I mean, certainly they would appeal, but the question is just how much longer can they go? And and I would not expect them to be racing in 2027 if they lose this case. I would expect that their cars would be sold. Well, they don't really have the charter since they never signed for them, but the cars that they did that are not being used would be sold, and those organizations would need to find employees and find equipment. And 2311 in front row would certainly be spots where they could potentially buy some equipment and find some employees.
And I guess kind of as a counterpunch on that, do you think Bubba Wallace, could he request to be let go and become a late one, or do you think he's kind of a lame duck and will get signed somewhere?
Well, I think both Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace can go at any time now. They're racing as open teams. They could go anywhere they want if somebody wants them, and certainly both have attributes that other teams would want, and I think other teams have certainly asked, especially Tyler Reddick, considering his performance in 2024. There certainly were people calling him, trying to get him for next season, but he has so far opted to stay. And I think they both will stick it out for as long as they view that there's a future at that organization. That as long as that organization keeps running well. But as you know, Roy, these things are pretty. They can switch on a dime. If they come out and if they didn't win the lawsuit and they're appealing, and they're not running well at the start of next season, you certainly could see some pretty quick changes.
And there you have it. Bob, as far as any final words that you have on this particular matter we haven't covered so far, or we pretty much went through it?
Well, I just think it's it's one of those things that when companies grow, and I think especially with the next gen car coming in, that certainly added a new dynamic of NASCAR's control. And so now you're kind of just seeing the fight over money and a little bit of fight over control.
Yeah, I found one thing to be really interesting, and that was in the text messages, emails that came out on NASCAR's side on SRX. And I'm like, I thought these guys were independent contractors, and you're really upset about Thursday night. And to me, I took some video because I had another podcast I did earlier. I'm trying to bank some of these, between now and the season. And, you looked at all the names that they had on SRX. People still like names, even if they're retired drivers from the various genres, whether it's IndyCar, NASCAR, or somewhere else. And it seems like that's a point. When you can fill stands with 5,000 and 10,000 people, I can see why NASCAR took notice. But why do you care on Thursday night if you don't really have any control over it? Any thoughts on that, or you'll zip your lip?
Well, no, I think in reading some of the other documents, it seems that there was certainly concern that if their drivers are racing somewhere else on a Thursday night with maybe some branding that looks a little bit like their NASCAR branding, that it's just too similar to what they're showing on Sunday. And the question is would the TV deal be as valuable if to media partners if the drivers are racing somewhere else on a different day during the week?
Yeah. Well, with that, Bob Pockrass, Fox Sports, I kind of gave away your tagline, but where can people read you? Because you want to keep up on NASCAR. There's a lot of great places to do it, but really none better than Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports. Where can we find you, Bob?
You can find me on Instagram and X at Bob Pockrass, or on the NASCAR on Fox website, foxsports.com/NASCAR. And if you're into IndyCar, foxsports.com/IndyCar.
Yeah. When I saw you at the Detroit Grand Prix this year, I know you kind of did a double take when you saw me there in the ballroom as we got Penske and all his people. And I'll be doing a couple races. I bet you're going to be doing a bunch, including the Indy 500 this year, aren't you?
You would think so, and the schedules are always a little fluid, but I would certainly enjoy my time at the Indy 500 this past year, and would think that'd be a good time in 2026 as well.
All right, everybody. Bob Pockrass, Fox Sports. This is Roy Jakers of High Bank Fury, and we have another edition coming up. Bob's going to stick around. We got one more episode, and I tell you what, you want to get the very best in NASCAR coverage. Bob Pockrass is a great way to go.
I wouldn't see them sticking around if they don't have a charter. I think Kyle Busch wins again. I just don't know whether it's at RCR or not.